All right, welcome back everybody. This is Stefano from the Worm Cowboy here, and today I'm really excited to show you all how we feed our worms here at the Worm Cowboy. This is a fun process. I do it every couple of weeks, and it basically is what helps us process all of the food scraps that we collect from the community. So I'm really excited to show you step by step how we feed the worms. This was a process that took me a little bit of time to learn myself and to really nail in and hone in on. Hopefully this is helpful to you if you're starting your own worm farm or composting operation. So let's get started and dive right in. All right, so here we are at step one of feeding. You got to start with your food source, right? For us, we collect the food scraps of the community, but we can't feed the raw food scraps to those worms because of a number of reasons. It could be very dangerous to them. It could have pathogens. The raw food scraps could heat up in the worm bins and kill the worms, or there might be things that the worms find very appetizing with other foods that the worms don't like as much, so they'll only eat the appetizing things. So the key first step, and maybe one of the most important things that we do here at the Worm Cowboy, is pre-compost all of our food waste. I'll make another video about how we pre-compost, but for now, I just want to show you the finished pre-compost pile. So all of this material has been pre-composting for 3 weeks at high temperatures of 130 to 150 degrees. And what that does is kill all the pathogens, make it so that the food won't heat up when we put it in the worm bins, and makes a homogeneous material that the worms will eat faster and safely. So we are going to take this material and basically sift out the large pieces from the smaller pieces, and the worms will eat the smaller material because it's easier for them to digest and break down and everything. So we'll use our Brockwood sifter to break this pile up, and obviously we're not going to feed the whole pile to them. It'll take a couple of months for the worms to go through all of this, but that's what we'll do. We'll sift some of this material, take the small pieces, and then feed the small pieces to the worms. So instead of shoveling the food from the compost bin directly onto my sifter, I have found it better to put the food into a bucket and then from the bucket sift the material. And that's just because it lets me work in batches. It's more manageable and easier. And another really helpful thing that I have learned is that the outside of your compost pile will dry up faster than the inside of your compost pile. So the juicy, if you could call it that, material that the worms like is actually deeper in than if you just scrape the top or the front part of your pile. So I like to get in there and scoop all this material out and then feed that to the worms. So this is a bucket full of pre-composted material that we will now take over there to our Brockwood sifter and sift out. So here we are at our Brockwood sifter, and I will make a video only on this guy in the future. But for now, all you need to know is that we have buckets below the sifter, and all of the small material will fall through the grates into those buckets, and the large material will carry down to the last hole, which will collect all of the large material that we will put back into the compost pile, the pre-compost pile, to continue breaking down further so that eventually it gets to the point where it's so small that the worms can eat it. But for now, we'll take this material and just start sifting, and we're gonna do this until we can fill about 6 5-gallon buckets full of fine pre-compost material. So it's gonna take a while, but let's turn this baby on and get sifting. All right guys, so after we're done sifting, we got two types of buckets. We got our first bucket with the small material that will feed to the worms. And then we have our big chunks, which we will put back in our pre-compost pile and allow to continue breaking down so that eventually this will be small enough that we can feed to our worms. So the next step is to take the small material into the worm room and actually feed the worms. So let's go do that now. All right, y'all, so now we are in my worm room and we have this big worm reactor that I built, and we have our 6 buckets of pre-compost that we just sifted from outside. 4 of these buckets will be fed to this worm reactor, and the other 2 will be fed to the bins that I have going in the back. It's pretty quick. We feed these ones real fast. Before we feed them, however, I do like to water my worm bin first, and then I'll spread the food in there, level it out with a shovel thing that I have, like a little prong thing, and then I like to wet the new food again because worms like humid environments. They like moist foods, so you got to make sure that what you're feeding them is nice and to their liking. So I'll water twice, and then that's pretty much it. All right, so that's how we feed our worms here at the Worm Cowboy. It's a little bit of a process, but I have found that this is the best way to process all of the food scraps that we're picking up from the community in the fastest way possible. And we do this either every week or every 2 weeks, and so far so good. You know, it's pretty amazing to see the worms turn all of our members' food scraps into vermicompost, the best, most fertile soil amendment that exists. And we're doing it all right here. And the feeding, you know, the worms got to eat, and every time that we feed them, we're helping keep food away from the landfill, which is our mission here. So I really do hope that you guys found this video super insightful. If you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments. And if you have suggestions for future video topics, things that you're interested in me covering on how we do it here at the Worm Cowboy, please let me know. I'd love to make videos for you so that you can become a better composter, a better worm farmer, because that's the goal. So stay tuned for future videos. Like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.